Welcome back. The Belt and Road Forum wraps up in Beijing after leaders from around the world experienced China's vision for a connected future. Still with us, Xiaolan Fu is founding director of the Technology and Management Center for Development at Oxford University. Ruslan Bultrikov is minister-counsellor and deputy permanent representative at the Mission of Kazakhstan to the UN. And Andrew Small is a senior transatlantic fellow at the German Marshall Fund. Ruslan, let me start with you. President Vladimir Putin of Russia was one of the high-profile leaders at the summit. He mentioned Kazakhstan specifically. Let's listen to what he said.
We have close views in the Eurasian Economic Community on the development of Eurasian integration. And for us, it is very important that the leaders of Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan participate in this forum. We welcome the large-scale initiative of China's Belt and Road. I also want to emphasize that Russia is ready not only to trade, but also to invest in the creation of joint ventures and new products in the territories of partner countries, the development of industrial assembly, marketing, and services.
So, Ruslan, give us a sense of how the Belt and Road Initiative changes the economic landscape in Central Asia, in a regional sense, if you like.
First of all, the most important thing for our countries, for Central Asian countries, which are all landlocked, is connectivity with Europe and beyond. So it is sort of attempt to make our landlockedness into land-linkedness. So we are having good access to seaports, including Pacific port of Leningrad. Number of projects have been implemented, as I already mentioned. So, and taking into account that Kazakhstan is a member of European Economic Union and has very close relations with Russia, Belarus, and other neighboring countries. So we believe it could be a good advantage in promoting One Belt, One Road initiative on this huge area. And we do hope that joint projects with participation of our neighbors, China, will be implemented on our territory within the framework of One Belt, One Road initiative and our membership in the European Economic Union. Besides, our membership in this organization, in European Economic Union, gives straight access to European markets, since Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan have common customs rules and procedures, so there is need only one get customs clearance. So we believe that it also could be a very good advantage. Besides, these territories are traditionally, I mean, at this stage, are stable in terms of political and economic situation. So it is also could be another value added to the One Belt, One Road initiative.
Andrew, let's take a look at Britain for the moment. It's a different story there. Britain, of course, is getting ready to withdraw from the European Union. Time of change for Britain. Let's listen to what Britain's representative to the forum, Philip Hammond, had to say.
As we leave the European Union, we want to maintain a close and open trading partnership with our European neighbours, and at the same time pursue our ambition to secure free trade agreements around the world with new partners and old allies alike. Our ambition is for more trade, not less trade, and China clearly shares this ambition.
So, Andrew, a changing time for Britain, ambitious goals there as outlined by Philip Hammond. How does Belt and Road fit in with those goals?
Well, the big problem for the UK is, of course, that a number of the Chinese companies that have been investing in the country had been doing so on the premise that the UK was a member of the single market, and therefore that goods and services would be able to flow freely across Europe as a result. So the UK is in a challenging position in this respect. There are some specific infrastructure needs that they have. Xi Jinping specifically mentioned one of them in his speech, the Northern Powerhouse initiative to improve the infrastructure connectivity with certain parts of northern England that have traditionally lagged behind. But really for the UK, they're looking for a vote of confidence from China after Brexit. They want to see certain forms of investment. They still want to function as a renminbi clearing centre. Some of the financial integration is important, and even cooperation with China in some third countries, even Pakistan, which we were talking about before. They're looking at some of the opportunities for British companies to partner with China on some of these investments elsewhere as well. So it's not just on the domestic side.
Xiaolan, if we look very broadly at China's role internationally and its emergence as a global leader, I want you to take a listen to what the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said at the forum he attended, and this is what he said.
The wide-ranging engagement of China is more necessary than ever today. Our world is multipolar, but that by itself is no guarantee of prosperity and peace. A multipolar world needs multilateral cooperation and multilateral governance to face common threats and to seize shared opportunities. The Belt and Road Initiative has clear echoes of the ancient Silk Road. Today, we must take that spirit to new heights for the benefit of all.
So, Xiaolan, how does China keep the momentum going here, build on this kind of momentum to entrench its position as a global leader?
Yeah, I fully agree that China is more than necessary. Now the global is moving towards sustainable development, but many developing countries are facing significant constraints in various aspects. My research in Africa, sponsored by the UK Research Council and the European Commission, find out that lack of investment, lack of skills, and accumulated knowledge are the main constraints that hinder the African countries from engaging in more innovation and have higher economic growth. And this Belt and Road Initiative that China has taken a lead has brought not only investment, but also concrete measures, a mixture of concrete measures to make all this into real. For example, Mr. President Xi yesterday mentioned that this Belt and Road, in terms of innovation, they are going to create science parks, create joint laboratories, and support technology transfer, and also train scientists, especially young scientists. These are very concrete measures, mechanisms, supported with financial investment. So all these are real actions and the commitment China has been made in terms of leading, helping the world and other countries moving together.
Ruslan, the whole idea of globalization has come under some pretty serious criticism from some countries. We've heard that from some of the countries in Europe, from the United States as well. But for a country like Kazakhstan, how important is globalization as we see it embodied in this Belt and Road Plan?
Yeah. Well, we believe that globalization exists. I mean, it is a fact that all countries are interconnected, especially in our days. My country is also very dependent on situation in the world economy. Therefore, we see the way forward as to more closely integrate with partners in order to implement joint projects and to achieve common goals. And in this regard, exactly One Belt, One Road initiative, which is gaining momentum after the first forum in Beijing, will be a very important tool and, on the other hand, objective of the development. Moreover, One Belt, One Road objectives of One Belt, One Road initiatives are closely connected, corresponds with the objectives of Sustainable Development Goals, which were adopted by the United Nations. And we believe that implementation of projects under the One Belt, One Road initiative would bring another impetus for implementation of Sustainable Development Goals in my country and in our region beyond. Thank you.
Andrew, if we look at the United States, the U.S. initially wavered on sending a delegation to this forum in Beijing, but in the end, a White House advisor did go. Do you think it's going to be a situation here in the U.S. where the private sector is actually going to lead the way? Because we do know that a lot of corporations, even smaller companies, want to get involved in this project.
Yes, I mean, actually, the representative who did go from the United States noted this. U.S. companies are already benefiting from some of these investments. There are GE, for instance. There's already hundreds of millions of dollars that they've been making from some of the power plant investments. U.S. companies in certain specific areas, and regardless of what the U.S. government's position formally is on this, will be beneficiaries of a lot of elements of the scheme. But I think the symbolism of them sending a senior representative was important. The Obama administration was quite ambivalent about the Belt and Road scheme. Of course, there was the decision not to go ahead with joining the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank that had been there in the past. I think there's some meaning to the fact that the new administration has sent more positive signals. The US itself is not going to be a subject of these kinds of Belt and Road investments itself, but when we're looking at third countries, when we're looking at various regions of the world, there's actually some relatively congruent objectives in some of those countries, and particularly when it comes to bringing stability to a number of the regions that will be important investment focal points for the Belt and Road scheme, but where the US doesn't always have the wherewithal to put these sorts of large sums of money in to make investments of this sort. So in some respects, this has been the sort of thing that the United States has been asking China to do in places like Afghanistan and elsewhere for some time. So despite the fact that there are differences between the two sides, and there's not complete agreement on some of the underlying principles of the scheme on a sort of case-by-case basis, I think they'll find ways to work together.
Okay, and that's where we have to leave it. Thanks to all of you for joining us.